Now let's get more on Greece with one of the smartest men on this. Eurasia Group President Ian Bremmer. He's also the author of Superpower, 3 Choices for America's Role in the World. Ian, great to have you on the program. So you have a new book out, but I want to start on Europe and on Greece.
Sure.
From your perspective, right, are we going to get a deal or not? Because it seems that, you know, this negotiation is not negotiation anymore. This is like mudslinging. Once you call the IMF
criminals,
you know, criminals,
it's not nice. Certainly.
It's not very nice at all.
But
naughty
Tsipras.
Tsipras.
But naughty Tsipras. Well, I think we should applaud Tsipras and Syriza. Certainly, there would be no other Greek government that would have gotten so much out of the Germans at this point. And I think that people need to take the long view and understand that. Yeah. I mean, this is a government that was voted in on the back of a depression in Greece. It was a radical left-wing government that has promised that they're going to give as hard as they possibly can. And frankly, so much of the megaphone that you see from not just from Varoufakis, but from Tsipras as well, is really oriented at that domestic Greek government. And the deal that they will eventually cut, and I believe, yes, I believe a deal is coming, right. But that deal is going to be made easier for them politically precisely because they've given as hard as they have. You can't go through this economic degradation and not expect this to get dirty, nasty, and go right down to the wire.
But so, Ian, you're basically saying, look, we should applaud them as long as they sign a deal, right? If this actually gets even more acrimonious and there's no deal and there's a default and they have to come up with an alternative currency.
Well, then I'd be very surprised.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean the Greek people don't want that. You know, 85% of the Greek people say that they want to stay in the euro. I think you've heard from the Greek government itself that they absolutely want to stay. Now, the left wing of Syriza has different perspectives, and
very different.
If you're the prime minister right now, you have to be asking yourself, when I cut this deal, when I have to go get approval in Parliament, how many of my members are going to defect, because I cannot have regime change. Right? That's just going to play into the Germans' hands. That's not going to help the Greek people ultimately, right? I mean, so he has to be supporting his constituents. And I believe that Tsipras, I mean, Varoufakis is his own sort of entity, but Tsipras himself is every bit a Greek patriot and seen as such by the Greek people. And I'm not saying that the Germans should be applauding them. I'm not saying that the Eurocrats or the IMF should be applauding them. But I'm saying that anyone that is interested in the position of the actual Greek people and the well-being, certainly the Greek citizens should be applauding the Prime Minister and the Syriza government at this point for what they've done.
Okay, what about Spain? Spain and Italy, what do? They look at Greece and say, well, actually, if they're playing tough and they get a better deal at the end of the day, why don't we try and do the same?
Of course, there'll be some of that, but there are 2 points here. First of all, there is no other economy in Europe that is remotely in the position that Greece is in terms of the literal collapse of the economy and the collapse of the public institutions and the inability to basically provide basic employment and a sustainable life for the Greek people. Secondly, Podemos in Spain has nowhere near the level of support that Syriza does as a consequence of that. And so if they achieve government, and it's still very much an if, given party dynamics in Spain, they wouldn't be governing by themselves. They'd have to govern one of the establishment parties in Spain, a very different dynamic. And in Portugal, of course, there isn't even a Podemos or Syriza analog. In fact, they've been very focused on the existing establishment parties in the country. So I don't think that there really is a sort of a tumble-down moment. And I think that gives Merkel more flexibility to come out publicly, take a softer line, and actually focus more on the geopolitics and the importance of maintaining the institution of the European Union.
Ian, we're just getting a tweet from Mr. Dijsselbloem, the Eurogroup head, saying, look, the election shouldn't lead to procedural debate. He's actually referring to the new leader of the Eurogroup. There's a standoff between him and Mr. de Guindos. On Greece, he's saying it's still possible to reach an agreement with Greece. On Merkel, so she doesn't want it to be her legacy for Greece to leave. You think that all these machinations mean that it's easier for her to give in to something. At the same time, she's getting more and more public discontent. I mean, I speak to lawmakers, right? Yes. And they're frankly fed up with the antics of Greece. So
shocking.
Her, you know, what's her position?
Look, the fact that the Germans are not prepared to take any accountability for how we got into this mess is something that doesn't surprise me internally. I mean, we in the United States took very little accountability for the 2008 financial crisis in terms of our bankers and the money that was lended that clearly was never going to be sent back. But Merkel understands better, and Merkel is, at the end of the day, she's not a profiteer. Merkel is a multilateralist and an institutionalist.
Yeah.
She may not be much of a global leader, right? And you see this in terms of Germany's relationship with China, which is very focused.
She was the one that always brokered the
side.
deals.
Well,
but didn't chat about it.
You know, well, she's clearly played a big role on Ukraine. But if you ask me, like, if you think about China as the rising power, going to be the largest economy in the world, the Americans and the Brits and the French, many countries are thinking about what it means for the institutions, where the Germans are going and saying, let's just do a bilateral economic deal. It's very commercial. But ultimately, Merkel wants a system that's rule-based, and the existence and the persistence of the European Union and the Eurozone is something that is so core, it's so fundamental to what Germany stands for and what Merkel stands for, that I think you'd have to have dramatically greater internal dissent. And she's still in a perfectly strong governing position domestically in Germany. I just don't think that plays very heavily, especially when we're talking about a Greek crisis that's playing out now. Now, if you want to talk about what happens after a deal in 6 months' time when we have to come again, life could be different for Merkel at that point. So I'm not suggesting that I feel great about the European outlook over the medium term being shorter for Europe than it is for most people. But I do think that we're in reasonable position politically as we enter into the end game on this individual bailout.
All right.